Good morning, and welcome to the Lone Star Weekly Business Hour. Your host, Rick Schissler, is a Silver Fox advisor who personally has over 40 years of experience as a serial entrepreneur. So sit back, pull out your pad and pencil, and get ready to take notes as we join Rick Schissler in his Lone Star Weekly Business Hour.
A couple of those things with you, particularly, again, if you're sitting back currently in a job somewhere, not happy with that job, feeling some insecurity, or more importantly, feeling some passion to do something different with your life, and talk about some of the things that perhaps you'd want to consider before you make that jump. One of the things, and overall, and my encouragement to you, not only do you do the research and whatnot, and reassure yourself that you have that passion, but that you develop some checklists. In other words, that you cover the bases. And I think it requires a little bit of an organization and discipline as well. You know, one of the most fun things we can do in life is think about ideas, brainstorm with friends and family, and particular experts and professionals. But I think you have to fall back at the very end. You've got to have a list or two or three, and I don't mean list a whole notebook full, but I encourage you to build some discipline into your process and make sure you cover the bases, because there's no doubt about it. When you start a business, that's a huge, huge jump for anybody, and it brings a lot of changes, hopefully most of them positive in your life. But I've been reading some material, as I said earlier, and I want to make sure I kind of made up a few items that I would put on my checklist if I was in the process of starting a new business, something I did more than once in my life, and it's kind of interesting. First, I want to focus on people that are currently in a job. Most startups come from people that are already in a job or profession. Some, like in my case, I started a business and then I started another business, previously worked in a family business. So this area was not really a particular concern to me. But again, a vast majority of you that would start a business, you're working somewhere. You've got a salary, you have benefits, you have some security for you and your family if you have a family that's coming from being there typically, unless you're in a business that's changing, one that's either going out of business or combining or being sold. But usually there's a certain amount of security there. So I think the first thing that I would recommend to everybody is prepare. And I mentioned that earlier in preparing the list. Prepare is really the key to preparation, is the key to a smooth transition. And one of the parts of that is you really need to strategically look at your tolerance level for inconsistent and possible negative income flow for 3 to 5 years. We've talked about this a little bit before. It's talked about in a lot of books and other speakers, but the idea is I'm going from making X dollars a year, a month, a week, or biweekly with my paycheck, and all of a sudden there's going to be this interruption, because very few businesses can start from day one, and even in the first or second or even third year be able to pay you the kind of money that you have been making, and particularly benefits as well. So you really need to think through that. If you're married, you need to discuss it with your spouse, and you both have to come to a place where you feel comfortable. And I think that's really, really important, that you feel comfortable that, yes, I'm taking risk. I may be borrowing money, as in many cases, that's a risk. But the interruption of the salary and the comfort and security that it brings to you and a family, if you have one, that's overlooked sometimes. Yeah, we agree, say, yeah, let's go for it, but we really don't think about that. And we've got to be able to give that up, and we've got to be prepared for that. And where it really hits typically, it's not that first paycheck or second paycheck that you don't get. It's that one in the middle of the first year, or the end of the first year, and you do your income tax and you see, gosh, I only made this much money. Well, if you look around you'll be able to tell, because you haven't hopefully spent that much money. In many cases, though, people do save up for the event, but a lot of times the savings run short. So there's a lot of potential conflict there for you as an individual with yourself. And again, if you have a family, even more potential. So it's very important to look at the fact that maybe I'm not going to have the income, or most likely I'm not going to have the income that we've had for the last number of years. And looking out 1, 2, 3 years or more is not unusual, and it needs to be done. Second thing I feel that's important is you build a backup plan. In other words, if I start this business and something happens unforeseen, I do my homework, I do all the preparation, and I'm going to make that assumption that you do it. And you start the business, and just something unforeseen happens, and the business just doesn't grow at the rate you hope. And all of a sudden, you're sitting there. You're starting to run out of money. You're running out of patience. Again, if you're in a family, the family, your spouse, they're right. You've got to have a backup plan, and you need to think that out ahead of time so that you don't become totally reactive in what you do. You're going to get nervous. You're going to lose some sleep if you're like most people. But you need to build a plan, not a plan for failure, but a plan to make an adjustment. And this plan includes not just the business, but in your personal lifestyle, if you will, because, again, it's going to get down to the money that you're able to take home. But successful entrepreneurs always have a backup plan to what they're going to do. In other words, they benchmark the first week, the first month, the first year, the first 6 months, whatever, first quarter, and they have benchmarks that they want to reach. And if they don't reach those benchmarks, then they step back and they work on the business. They take time automatically, right then and there. They don't wait and say, okay, what are we not doing right? What can we do different? How can we obtain those benchmarks and we hit our goals in the next quarter, the next month, the next year? Always looking to do that. The third thing, and the one we've really been talking about the most, is you got to plan. You've got to build some kind of planning. We talk about that a lot on this show, but you've got to go in this eyes wide open, plan in hand. And again, a plan can be as simple as a single sheet of paper. Some people think it needs to be 50 to 100 pages long. It can be a strategic plan. It can be a business plan. It can be a marketing plan. It can be all of those above and more. It can be a personal income and expense plan. All of these things need to be thought through, and they need to be put together. And depending on what level you want, how much time and effort, it can be professionally prepared. You can engage someone like myself to help you prepare these plans. But the key is you need to go through the plans, you need to ask the questions, and when you go into that new business, go armed with your plan. And the last thing that I wanted to mention in this area is if you've been working at a job where you're an employee, one of the things, and particularly I think the larger the company you work for, the more this is true. As a company gets larger, they have more rules, procedures, processes. I ran into that last week in buying a car from a dealership that had been absorbed by a large national company, and a couple of times things slowed to a snail's pace. I said, can't we just finish this up? There's no financing involved. What is it taking so long? Well, the company has. You got to fill this out. I sit there and I shake my head, and the salesman kind of shook his head in a nice, polite way. But the point is that you've got to be prepared to unlearn, and relearn a lot of the things that you already know. When you start from scratch and you start a new business, even if you have employees the first day, but most businesses start with just 1 or 2 or 3 people. If you've been working for a company that has 100 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, you've learned how to do things a certain way. And you've got to be prepared to unlearn those things. So don't forget about that. In other words, don't think the first day is going to be different. Yeah, we probably understand that. But when you go in the first day, you got to be prepared to make some changes, and they're going to come. The second thing I'd like to touch on just briefly today, as far as education and tips, is the idea that you're not starting that business. You've got a business idea, you've had it, you've held it back. You might have even talked to your spouse if you're married, friends, family, advisors, and you just can't quite bring yourself to do it. And that is the idea that there's fear. There's fear in your mind and your heart that's stopping you from doing what you really want to do. And I think it's interesting. But let's look around for just a moment. We sit here in 2014, and again, we talked just a moment ago, I mentioned about the idea of the security of being in a job. And I would suggest to you one thing that there's several things that perhaps can make you realize that fear that you have really is a little bit overblown in light of today's world. The first thing is the era of security in a job, pretty much with any company, any place in the world, that era is over. You know, after the Second World War here in this country, and we've heard it before, people went to work at a company, they worked there for 30, 40, 50 years. They retired, they got to go watch. That's pretty much gone. I mean, just look around. Pick up the Wall Street Journal this morning. Pick up the newspaper. You'll see companies change, being absorbed. I mean, it happened to me last week. I have a website that was hosted by a small startup company. It was a pretty creative process. It was easy for me to use. And I got an email on Friday that says, oh, sorry, as of April 7th, we're no longer going to be able to handle your business. We've been acquired by Yahoo. And so on and so forth. And I sat there and I said, geez, I put all that work into the website. I like the way it worked. It was easy for me as a non-technical person to use. But all of a sudden, the security of that website and what it was doing for my business was gone. And I have to make new plans. Well, the same thing is true about careers. So if fear is in your way and it's balanced against the security you're getting, forget about it. It's just not there. Is like it was even 5-10 years ago. So take that one off the list. The other things, if you really want to zero down into them, and this, I was reading an article and picked it up. In fact, it was a blog by Michael Lazaro, the founder of Buddy Media. Michael was writing, he says in his blog that I picked up, that the fact is that, we really have no security. We don't have government security. And I'm not going to get into politics today because I shy away from that on this program. But, the government, just everything about it, healthcare on down, we don't know. It's just constantly. And he says you don't have business security and financial security with investments, markets and things. Of course, stock market's up now. But the point I think Michael was trying to make, even though it got a little tough to read through this, I felt kind of bad at the end of it, kind of depressed, but was the idea that really isn't a good reason. None of that is a good reason to be fearful. And if you really have a passion for what you're doing, perhaps the best investment you can make is yourself, is to invest in yourself and take your idea, your passion, your desires, and put them together and put your plan together and go out there and start that business. And I thought that was pretty good advice. In other words, invest in yourself, build yourself the flexibility and perhaps a prosperous future for you and your family by starting that business. And I thought that was interesting, that history, if you will, history of business, government, financial history, and where we are today in 2014, perhaps will offset that fear that you've had of not starting a business that's held you back, and the fact that it perhaps might be the best thing you can get to do, is to start a business to overcome your fear. So that's a nice way to turn it around. So that's it for today on our tips and ideas I have for you. Hopefully that's been beneficial to you. We're going to take a short commercial break, and we'll be right back with you with our guest, Brandon Wilkinson.
Tune in at 3 o'clock every Wednesday for Aperture and Shutter Speed with me, Tom Moore of TR Moore Photos.
And me, Dick.
If you are an amateur or expert, or if you haven't ever picked up an SLR camera before, Aperture and Shutter Speed is a show for anyone who loves photography and film.
Join the conversation with us by calling in or emailing us your questions. If you want to know what's coming up on Aperture and Shutter Speed, just look up our show page on irlonestar.com or look us up on Facebook.
Join us every Wednesday at 3 p.m. for Aperture and Shutter Speed, and remember,
take your lens cap off.
Since the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo awarded its first scholarship, we have sent nearly 15,000 students to college on show scholarships. Just this year, 2,000 students are attending more than 100 Texas colleges and universities on show scholarships worth nearly $30 million. Combined with the junior market auction money, livestock and horse show premiums and prizes, cat scramble awards, school art auction money, judge and contest prizes, grants to universities, and funds to cultural, community, and civic organizations, the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo has committed more than $350 million to youth and education throughout Texas. Learn more at rodeohouston.com.
This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor, welcoming you back to the Weekly Business Hour. And as promised, we have Brandon Wilkinson in the studio today. Brandon's with America's Home Place. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Rick, thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation. Good to be here back in the studio.
Well, I'm excited about having you here today. As you and I were talking prior to the show, I became fascinated with the way your company goes about its business, and we're going to be talking about that. But before we do that, please share with us a little bit of your business background, if you will.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. I started at an early age in the construction industry with my father. He was an electrical contractor. This is back in the state of Utah where I grew up. So as you can imagine, Dad's got the business, and you can imagine what I was doing those summers. I was out in the field running wire or down in a trench on a shovel. It was very laborious work. I didn't look forward to my summers maybe as much as some of my friends did, but I learned a lot from it, being on the jobs with the men. And I was always inquisitive, so I was asking questions all the time. I was always eager to learn new things, understand why they were doing what they were doing. And as I got older and thinking about all the the direction I wanted to go as a career, that was a tough decision. I'm a little bit indecisive, and getting into college and eventually university, I was exploring careers. I was exploring what I wanted to do, and I found it easier by just process of eliminating what I didn't want to do. And as I started narrowing these down, I found a degree called facilities management. I had no idea what that was, and as I looked at it, I thought, the course, the direction of the course and the classes that I'd be involved with, that sounds right up my alley. Let's do that. Of course, I came out of Brigham Young University with a degree in facilities management and loved my program. Loved the it was very analytical, practical, and it fit. I ended up taking going through like many do out of school, looking for job opportunities, and this is where I first met America's Home Place. An interview, and I've been with them since those past 11 years, where I've that knowledge has continued and expanded. So that's just a rough background from kind of where I started and where I'm at.
Well, one of the things that I found unique when I went through your background and your biography is that you basically took a skill set that you, as you said, learned through some maybe challenging summers, but you directly translated that skill set into what you do today. I mean, construction, obviously there's similarities of electrical construction versus what you do today.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just, in the field and, running wires and conduit. It was, as I got older and explored a little bit more about some innate talents that were there, some of those things to just run a business. I picked up on, things like Microsoft Excel, for example, and I learned, a little bit of just some basic programming, if you will. So a lot of my time developed into electrical estimating. I was studying plans and doing, just quantitative takeoffs and learning a little bit more about not just how to build that house or that building, out on site, but first learning how to build it on paper, from your mind, and then on paper, and then see that thing come to fruition. And that was exciting for me to see the fruits of my labors there.
Well, that's always exciting. I think if you can take some from the beginning to the end, and so many of us, particularly those who work as an employee in a company and are not entrepreneur or own their own business, they only see their piece of it. And I feel blessed because I've always been a part of something that I can see from beginning to end.
Absolutely, seeing that whole puzzle and not just the pieces come together is exciting. You kind of see the work of art there. So
well, plus you have an opportunity to also make improvement on it and constantly change it and adjust it and whatnot. Let's talk about America's Home Place. You've been with them 11 years. What, if you will, brought you and your family to the Conroe area?
Most recently with the company, I was in Georgia, and as I was where our corporate headquarters are located, in Gainesville, Georgia, and the company's always been very proactive for looking for new markets, looking for opportunities where they can thrive and be successful, and they've done that where we've spread, touching into 15 states where we build. Texas has been on the map for quite some time. Even before we opened our location here in Conroe, America's Home Place saw an opportunity to come out and rebuild some of the damaged homes that took place with the hurricanes up and down the coast, and it opened up doors for them to send some employees out and tear down and rebuild homes in and around the Beaumont area, the Galveston area. We're down now in the lower Rio Grande area. But they said, this has allowed us to understand a little bit more about building and the practices. So the opportunity opened up for me and my family to make that transition, and we don't look back. It's been a great move for us, really an exciting move. The company as a whole does right around plus or minus 1,000 homes a year, and we look at the Texas, and we look at the growth, and my gosh, there's a lot of land out there. We recognize the opportunities, and we truly feel that we could see half of our business coming right out of Texas over the next 5 years and beyond. There's just incredible opportunity.
Well, that's amazing to have a company in Georgia, and then projecting that half of your business down the road in, near future, 5 years to me is near, coming out of this marketplace. You must really think that Texas is going to boom, particularly, I guess, where Houston, the whole state? Where are you looking?
Well, each of our locations build roughly a 50-mile radius, and so recognizing that, we've had our eyes on College Station. We've been watching the Austin, San Antonio markets and beyond. We know that as exciting as it is for us, and knowing there's immediate potential, there's a lot more to it. And just listening to you in the first segment here about planning and very good advice. We have to plan. We have to have a direction on how to be able to do that. And a big part of that's having the proper people. Success of the company really goes back to the individuals that are working for it, and that training is a huge part of our ability to grow. And so we will move into those markets, in the appropriate time, and as we can get the right people.
Well, let me ask you this, and again, I alluded to this earlier, but America's Home Place, what makes them different, the way they approach home building? I mean, they don't buy tracts of land and build homes, from what I understand. What really does make them different?
Yeah, that's a great question. We do have a very specific niche in the market. We're not doing remodels. We're not doing additions. We focus, strictly on single family, residential construction, somewhere between $150,000 contract to $450,000. That is our primary scope of business right there. And when we go into the markets, each market, there's a lot of research that's involved. When coming to Conroe, there were trips out on my part, and I had to certainly understand what's currently being done in the area, what's available, and how can we take where we've been different in our other markets and be different here. And so as I begin to understand the methods, right down to the engineering methods of the way homes are being built, to the finishes that may be on that home, and the concept of how that buyer steps into the sales process with that individual who may be selling that home to completion. As I've understood that, it became very clear to me where we already shine and where we're already very different. The success of the company has been a philosophy where we want to be able to truly want to offer more for less. And that's tough to do. It's tough, especially in this market. We have prices continually on the rise. We're dealing with limited trade base, and so there's certainly many challenges that are present for us. But we have taken what we would recognize as upgrades for many builders, be it stainless appliances, be it an oil rub bronze lighting package or plumbing package. Little more impressive trim when it comes to just the aesthetic appearance of the inside of that home. And on and on. We've looked at these, and one thing I just don't get when I got here was garages. I don't believe how these Texas garages can be so small, but yet everybody has these really big trucks. And, we've right out of the gate recognized, well, we are different. We have these big garages. Our doors are already 2 feet wider than most of what we've seen with what goes into these homes. And it's not often pointed out, but certainly it's recognized when people just drive in and open that garage door and go, wait a minute, I've got some space here for storage and I don't have to hit my other vehicle. And so we take these little differences. Shelving might be one other point. You don't recognize or think about the depth of that shelving, and this is just a recent change, but company-wide, the decision has been said, let's take that 12-inch shelf to 16-inch. No big deal, but it really is a big deal for that consumer, and it makes a big difference for storage. So as we begin to evolve our business based on its market, we want to be able to offer more for less at an attractive price, and that's tough to do, but is what we've been able to obtain, and we're continuing in that direction.
What we're going to do now, ladies and gentlemen, let's take another break here for a moment. And I want to particularly, Brandon, when we come back, let's talk a little bit specifically about how you build a home and some things like that and some of the challenges that you face as a builder. You've already mentioned some. So please stay with us, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll be right back with you.
Hello, this is Dennis Nelson, inviting you to come with me through the doorway of imagination and into the theater of the mind. The Players Theater Company Old Time Radio Hour presents a play every Saturday night at 7 p.m. on Lone Star Internet Radio. Be it drama or comedy, thriller or love story, every exciting episode is carefully chosen straight from the golden age of radio and performed live by talented actors, musicians, and sound effects crew. Every sound you hear will be 100% live and homemade. Anything can happen. So join us, please, every Saturday night at 7 p.m. for the Players Theater Company Old Time Radio Hour, right here on Lone Star Internet Radio.
Hi, I'm Joyce with the Corner Pub in downtown Conroe. We're located at the corner of Simonton and North Main, just across the street from the courthouse. The week starts off Monday with open mic hosted by Alan, and Tuesday nights open mic hosted by Jeremy Bankhead. And on Thursday evening, McFarland Jams. There's nightly drink specials available every night, all night. And don't forget, live entertainment every weekend. To see a full list of events, visit our website at thecornerpubinconroe.com. So come join us at the Corner Pub, where the deli is open late.
Hello, Montgomery County. I'm Rachel Baldwin with Special Olympics Texas, Area 6. Are you a fan of courage? Are you a fan of determination? Are you a fan of acceptance, grace, and skill? Then you're already a fan of Special Olympics. Make it official. Volunteer, coach, and/or compete and be a fan of dignity and acceptance. The dedication of our Special Olympics Texas volunteers provides mainstreaming experiences for athletes with intellectual disabilities. You will touch the heart of another person, and it will move you in a meaningful way that lifts the spirit. Please visit the Heart of East Texas Area 6 webpage at www.sotx.org. Also, like us on Facebook to be a fan and be part of Special Olympics Texas.
Welcome back to the Weekly Business Hour. This is Rick Schissler, your host, Silver Fox Advisor, and we're here in the studio today visiting with Brandon Wilkinson, who works with America's Home Place. And in the last segment, Brandon, you were talking a little bit about what makes America Home Place different as a builder, really as a business. And I'd like to perhaps get a little, just for a moment, get a little more specific. Maybe a hypothetical would be the best way to approach it. Say my wife and I were looking to build a home. We had our eye on a piece of property or bought a piece of property because I understand you're not in the property business. And so we're talking to some local custom builders, I guess you'd call them. We're talking to you, and then I know there's some other tract type builders that build homes or custom homes, and I come in to talk to you. What are you going to tell me?
Well, Rick, right out of the gate, I want to know what your goals are. I want to know what your needs are in a house. Wants, sure. Needs, yes. Those are both important to us. But as we begin to, really understand how to best help you, we've got to go right back to the financing of what this is going to cost. Because if I don't understand, your budgetary constraints, and we've all got those constraints, it's very difficult to help our clients. And all too often I see in this industry, we get in there, it's exciting to be able to begin drawing up a house, it's exciting to be able to plan. And if we get down to looking at those numbers and realizing it doesn't work, I've done I've done you a disservice, and you're frustrated, and you feel like you have to start over, go back to the drawing board. So right out of the gate, we really want to understand what do you need in your home, and what is the ideal or your target budget. And as we understand that, then I can begin to design this home around your needs, the needs of the home as well as the needs being the budget, and we can move forward knowing the end from the beginning. We can move forward and build this house without running into unnecessary hurdles for you or me. So that would be the first thing, right? I would mention get the financing in line and understand and help identify what it is that's important to you in this new house.
Now, teach me this. What would, and again, I have several different groups of builders I can talk to. The custom builder, the individual, who builds 5, 10, 20, 25 homes a year, and then I've got these. Why would I choose to work with you over these other groups?
Well, there's certainly experience, for one. We have experience of a lot of people. We're a large company, as I've mentioned, more than just the individual, myself and employees we have here in Conroe. We've got a team that backs us, a corporation of drafters and estimators, and we get down to our purchasing agents, and there's just tremendous buying power. We talked a little bit earlier about what we put into our home, but focusing on this question can really roll into the price of where this is all going to cost. We can find that we can, nearly every case that I've seen, get somebody more house for their dollar. And that's important. People want the biggest bang for their buck that they can get, and they want to know that their dollar is well spent. And so I don't think it comes as any surprise that one of the first questions I get asked is, where's your per square foot on this house? Not to discount the question, but it's very difficult to price or to look at a per square foot on a home, because everything that goes into that house is very, very different. And so it's important for us to recognize what am I getting for that per square foot in that house. And as we come to draw the distinction of, wow, there is more in there at a better price, that's a major difference. And with the corporation behind us, yes, that gives... That's where we pull a lot of the buying power from, but we build it but locally. We're building it locally. We're warrantying that home locally, and in a sense, we are that hometown builder. We're not a toll-free number away, and so really that consumer is getting the best of both worlds when they come in and sit down and talk to us.
And then one thing I think I heard you say is you also help with the design work as well as the building.
Absolutely, and this is a big part of our business, and failed to certainly mention this. I'm glad you've drilled a little deeper there, Rick. Many times with the way that our engineering is done on these homes, you'll find where builders say, you know what, this is the house, and you got to take it just like that. We will take that plan and say, you know what, this is a plan. I understand your needs. Let's talk about how we can make that happen. And you'll be surprised. I'm not limited even by what. Sure, I can make some changes and move windows and doors, but I might even be able to move that load-bearing wall for you. Nearly in every case. It takes some re-engineering on our part, but we do that, and that's what's exciting for people as they get in there and realize that I can open up a wall or stretch the house. You want a bigger pantry or bigger master bedroom? No problem. We can do that, and we can do it very reasonably. Now, that service that we do is a part of what we do. It's not having to go to an architect and pay to have $1,500 or $3,000 to have these plans drawn up. We can sit down as a part of our service without any commitment, understand those needs, and draw up all your changes and produce a price as we do that, not getting committed with to a plan and having to spend all this money up front, but I'm pricing it as we go so we can understand if this is going to still work with the budget. So some neat concepts that we have laid out there, and it's always exciting for that customer to come in and sit in front of me and be able to do that without feeling pressure to buy that house. We want to sell a house to somebody because it works for their needs, not because there's pressure. So,
well, and I think the advent, if you will, and the use of the computer-aided design and whatnot into architecture, engineering, and whatnot has to be a big plus for people in your business as well, because you can make changes rapidly. And I wouldn't be surprised that there's software even available as I make a change. It calculates what the cost is or estimates a cost. Have we come that far yet?
I wish it was as easy as that. There is programs out there that can do fairly well. In our office, we literally sit down with a little bit of whiteout and a red pen. We sit down with a scale and a plan that's to scale, and we will hand draw. And understanding our pricing, and this is very key here. All of our trades are on a quote sheet, so we recognize and know what I'm going to pay for any particular house, whether it be on lineal footage or square footage or per house. I know what those rates are going to be. And so as a customer sits in front of me and we begin to price out what I know this is going to cost, I don't have to put this out for bid generally. I'm not having to wait for 2-3 weeks to get something back, or during the building process for that matter, where it can really drag out the time frame to build that home, for example. You'd be surprised to note that 90 days is a pretty typical build for me because of this organization of having these trades already established, and not having to go out and start hunting for maybe a low ball bid to be able to try to make this home profitable. I know where it's going to come in from day one.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting concept, and the fact that you are working or allow yourself and set yourself up to work on a 90-day turn, which based on my background a little bit in the construction business on the commercial side, though, but that's a pretty quick turn. Let me ask you this then: on a day-to-day basis in your business, what is the single biggest challenge you face day in and day out? I'm going to have to throw that into my marketing and advertising right now. As recognized, we've been in this market now for 2 years, and the name America's Home Place doesn't say a lot. It doesn't say America's Home Place on my business card. It says America's Home Place, and in many of the markets where we're at, people recognize America's Home Place. They want to build that America's Home Place home. Their parents built it. They want to build theirs, and we get out here, and people don't know who we are, where we're at, what we do, and so getting that word out is a very real challenge for me. It just takes time. And some of the best pieces of advertising that I have are the consumers that are building with me right now. We've done 20-something homes last year. We've got 15 currently under construction. Getting those job signs out in those neighborhoods, having these open houses, what we call a muddy boot or a construction open house, and letting folks come in and see that product is huge for us. In fact, just an example here, last month we did an open house on one of our homes, and I was hopeful to get 20-30 people to come out and see this home. Some of our buyers that were maybe on the fence and have asked, we'd like to see something. We got 75 people out. I was blown away. And here we are, a month and a half later, I'm still getting phone calls saying, is that house still available? And of course, being in 90 days, it's done. The homeowners moved in, but there's plenty of other homes to take people out and let them see. So that is right now is a really looking to be a great outlet for us to be able to show our product in that way. One of the best pieces of advertising that we've got. Yeah. Well, I think that's almost a must in what you do. You've said that your challenge is getting established in a market, which kind of digress a little bit, if we can, to basic marketing. What are the ways that you have determined to market your business, to penetrate that market? I mean, obviously you've got product you can show, which I would agree with you, that's probably critical. But do you have a general marketing plan that you follow, or is it just what comes along? Tell our listeners what you do to market in your industry.
I really try to be diverse in this. I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. I want to really look to see what's working. Now, when I say what's working, I have to look at my competitors and see where are they at, what are they doing, what's working for them. It's certainly very helpful to not have to repeat mistakes that other builders have done. And I love it when an advertiser comes to me and says, well, so-and-so used to advertise with us. I'm thinking, well, why are they not doing it anymore? And so there's really some good information there when you're looking at maybe the competitors and what they've got going. So anything from radio to TV, print is huge, billboards. A lot of these won't bring immediate results, but it does do a lot of branding for us. A billboard will let people start to recognize that, hey, there's a builder here in the area I haven't heard of. Let's look at that. Internet advertising right now is huge, and I think we're all recognizing that. Getting our name out where people can simply go in and type America's Home Place, having heard the name, or type for custom home builder, in Montgomery County. We find that literally, I'd have to say 60 to 65%, maybe even higher than that, of our leads come in through that Google marketing and that Google advertising. And again, being a corporation, we've got a lot of help on that side with our IT department and pushing those landing page campaigns that drive that business to us. And our location's not that visible. We're a little bit hidden. hidden there by the JCPenney at the Tees Nursery exit. And so usually when the folks walk in, they've been to that website, they've had a chance to look at those plans, and they're much further along down that road. Very different from some of our markets where we operate in model homes, and people just stop in all day long. So being diverse, I would just go back to see what your competitors are doing and keeping. Don't put all those eggs in one basket.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. Let's kind of change subjects a little bit. And we've been generally talking about your business planning. You personally, do you do any planning in your life as far as formal, write down a personal plan, your goals that you're trying to achieve through your business and whatnot?
I do. My wife and I mean, we have financial plans. Young, but retirement's going to be in the future, and it comes very quickly as I recognize I'm going, where did the last 15 years go? And so we do. We have financial plans, and we literally will sit down. Generally, every pay period is that time where we look to see savings goals. I'm a consumer too. In fact, I've built homes, I've owned homes, and I'm preparing right now to buy or build again. And that planning has to happen somewhere, and it has to happen daily, and it requires commitment. It's difficult to save $1. It is, and I found that when I pay myself first, we are able to achieve those goals. So financial plans, we have plans to do certain events with our children. We want to get out and do some vacations with them, and do certain outings. And that takes planning. We can't just say, let's all go to Disney World. We've got to set those goals, and it creates excitement because then the kids buy into it, and the kids want to be a part of that. And it's fun to see their excitement and their efforts and to help toward those family goals.
Well, I think that's wonderful that you've extended it down to the family as well. And I mean, that's one of the weaknesses that I see from a lot of the businesses I work with is the planning thing. And I even talked about it in the remarks. It almost gets repetitive with me, but the encouragement to do whatever kind of planning that you do. And when I say whatever, it doesn't have to be a 50-page. It can be a one-page. That's sort of a saying I have. It can be one page. But review it and stay and milestone it. And again, personal, business, and whatnot. Well, I appreciate your comments on that. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take another short break, and we'll be back for the final segment and visit with Brandon a little bit about work-life balance. As you can imagine, starting a new business here in less than 2 years in the marketplace, Brandon probably puts a lot of hours in. So we'll chat with him a little bit and see how he balances things out. So stay with us, and we'll be back with you shortly.
Do you ever wonder what's going on in the business community? Are you looking for ways to get plugged in? Cassandra Roshan here, Director of Membership Development with the Greater Conroe, Lake Conroe Area Chamber of Commerce, and I would like to invite you to tune in to Chamber Chat. Tune in the first Tuesday of every month at 11 a.m. so you will be in the know for all Chamber happenings for the month. Each month, the Chamber offers 2 free lunch and learn sessions, a networking breakfast, business after hours, membership luncheon, as well as many other special events throughout the year. I will give you a rundown of all programs and events for the month, as well as interview our speakers and hosts of these events. So grab a cup of coffee and tune in to Chamber Chat the first Tuesday of every month at 11 a.m. Chat with you then.
Hey y'all, Montgomery County Emergency Assistance is presenting their first annual Don't Mess with Texas Women Concealed Handgun class on Saturday, April 12th at the Conroe Shooting Center, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's limited to 30 participants. It's just $100, with all proceeds benefiting Montgomery County Emergency Assistance. Register online at mcea-tx.org. Bring your gun and let's have some fun. Don't Mess with Texas Women Concealed Handgun class, April 12, 2014, and all proceeds benefit Montgomery County Emergency Assistance.
This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox Advisor. We're back here with Brandon Wilkinson in today's weekly business hour, and we've been talking a lot about Brandon's business career and his company, America's Home Place, and building homes and all the challenges that you can probably well imagine that go into that. And at this point, we'd like to perhaps touch a little bit on Brandon's personal life. One of the things that is an issue for everyone that's in a growing industry, everyone who starts a business, is what I call simply the work-life balance. Brandon, you have a young family. in their growing family. And you mentioned even, I think, that you were possibly looking to move to a new home, and so you've got a lot of things going on at home. How do you personally approach the work-life balance where you don't overwork and spend some time with your family?
This is a tough one. I've caught myself being overworking. I have, and in past years I've been able to recognize that and make some changes. This move to Conroe for our family has been a fresh start to all of that and a neat opportunity for us. We've I have committed not to work Sundays. That's something I truly believe that we shouldn't be doing. I've committed to closing those doors when the office is closed. And people understand. People have families too. We don't have to always cater our lives to every client. People can recognize that. And as I've done that, I've found times to be able to get out and do family walks on a regular basis, with our family. We have at home a real fun thing that we do. It's called Family Night. Every Monday night, we pull together, and it's an opportunity for us to sing. We do scriptures. We have a game. We eat dessert. There's some favorites in there for my kids. We make assignments of who's going to do what, and we rotate those assignments. One recent one that we've done is we've gotten up into the Huntsville State Park, and we've been out and have done some bike riding and trail walking with the kids. And so it's something to look forward to every Monday, and that's something that's consistent at our home that helps to kind of just break the monotony of our day-to-day activities. One of the things that we've done at home recently is we've picked up a little digital piano for Christmas for our children, a chance for them to learn just a new skill, a new talent, a new ability. As they've always, they're kids, they're exploring. And I'm a kid at heart. I took piano when I was younger, and I wanted to learn it too. So I've committed to and you'll like this, Rick. I've been learning through YouTube. So I've got these YouTube lessons that we watch as a group. We listen to the theory. We watch the what's being taught for that particular lesson, and then we sit down and we practice through the week as a family. And this has been fun for me to just self-compose a song and walk away like, I'm out through my age out there, but there's always opportunity to learn, and it's fun to take these opportunities and do them with your spouse or do them with your kids. Life's short. Kids grow quickly. I look at a lot of those years with my oldest, who's 11, and I go, gosh, you know what? I can't believe she's this old, and I do recognize that there's some lost time there. I've got my 3-year-old son, who's a spitting image of me, and my dad always said I'd have one just like me, and that always made me about as upset as it wasn't. It was said in the context. I knew how I was as a child. I was troublesome, and here he is, and man, what a fun boy to relive my life through him and go out and do the things that I enjoyed when I was young. So if that family night and family home evening is one of our favorite times, and really a time for us to put work aside and not take it home with me.
Well, it sounds like what you've done, and I appreciate it and admire it very much, is you've got plan time. I mean, you're planning, using the idea of a plan. Again, it sounds funny in the context of a family, but really, you really have to plan. And the idea that the family's learning to play the piano together is kind of amazing. I mean, when would we should look for that first public performance?
I've even written some lyrics to this first song, but that will stay at home. It's I don't know if you're going to see anything out on the air yet with it.
Well, every family should have its own time. There's no doubt about it. We've talked about the work-life balance, and as we wind down the show today. And it's a question I missed earlier, but when you sit back as a businessman, you've sounds like thus far you've had a great career. You've worked those hard summer lessons that your dad taught you and the work you did, like I did. My dad wanted me to find out what I didn't want to do, so I dug a ditch one summer and I did different things, and maybe that's what your dad had in mind. But the point is that we all develop certain issues and things that we feel are critical for success in our careers, in our business. What would you say is the most critical issue you feel that is going forward that's important for people, yourself, that you've experienced as far as being successful long-term in business?
I'm going to have you repeat that for me, Rick.
Well, I mean, as you look at your career, and
yeah.
you've had a successful career, What do you think is the most important thing or issue or area that you've worked on or focused on that has led to your success?
I'm going to tie this into continual learning. Many of us, we get that degree, we get that certificate, we get to that point where we passed. We're there. But continual learning is huge. It's huge for me. It's huge for my family. It's huge for my employees. It's huge in any business for continual success. Continual learning also doesn't have to necessarily mean going back to school and getting a degree or another degree. It can take place in the day-to-day life. It can take through simply sometimes just reading a book or, exploring the internet on a particular topic. At our office, I can share with you that, and again, we're in a new market. We're dealing with new foundation types for us. We're dealing with, comparing the practices of the trades and what we might see our competitors do. And as I get into their head a little bit and I get into the whys, why are they doing what they're doing, it helps me to better me and me to better our business. I can take like this end of the month, for example. I've got 3 different individuals I've invited to come into our office. I've invited our truss engineer. I've invited our I-joist engineer, and I've invited our foundation engineer. My heat and air contractor, 4 there actually, and they're coming in and they're bringing their professionals with them. And I've got an hour block set aside for each of them to train us. And the better that we can understand, the better we can help our consumer, the end user, as our salespeople are trying to sell a product that maybe they know very little about or may think that they know a lot about. Man, there's just so much good information out there and so much knowledge from people. And as we get in there and learn from them, we can really be more successful. One other one, Rick, is the next week out, we've got a trip to North Carolina, and we're taking a couple of our employees over to a training called BOLT, Bulls, Owls, Lambs, Tigers. It's a personality training. It's a sales technique training. It's an opportunity for us to learn from a gentleman who's written some really unique studies together on these personality types, Charles Clark III. It's worth really for the listeners to look up and learn and understand. But I've been through this training about 10 years ago, and I'm excited to go back and listen and learn and relearn some of these techniques. As you can imagine, you forget things. And so the training is huge. It's huge for us. It should be at some point in the planning and goals of individuals. Certainly for me and my employees, we want to make continual learning a process that we utilize daily. So.
Well, I think you really hit on something there, Brandon, because so many businesses, particularly smaller businesses, we forget about training. And I think that's one of the things that's critical, that even as someone who's in just myself, as I call them solos, I need to be plugged into training. I know I personally do it because I was taught it. I even had a class in college where they kind of a tie-up of before you graduate, a senior class that everybody had to take in the business school and taught you about reading and staying with things. But I think the idea that if you're in business, and particularly, again, if you're in your own business, you've got to be at least reading, studying, but if you have employees, the training aspect, and I know a lot of times in business we feel, especially smaller businesses, the budgets are tight, but you've got to make investment in employees, and it sounds like your company gets that. And I know you're a little larger company than perhaps we have in to visit, but the idea that you've embraced it and you're making sure that your people that work directly for you here and as well as yourself, and gosh, the world today, I'm always amazed. It's moving so fast, and we've got great resources on the internet. We've talked about that with YouTube, and now you've shared with us that you're learning to be, you got a family piano group, singing group that you're building with that. And I'm sure that kind of learning's available, but there's lots of learning out there and lots of resources. And I agree, every business should take advantage of them. But I want to thank you so much for taking your time to come and visit with us a little bit about yourself and about America's Home Place, which is a different kind of home building that I'd ever become aware of until I met you. And I think it's very interesting, and perhaps one when people are looking to build a home, they need to explore, they need to take a look at it, because you've got some interesting concepts that I feel would pay off for people. If people need to contact you, teach me, how do they reach out to you?
We are there at the JCPenney Tees Nursery shopping area. That's the 3083. And we're between the well, let me say to the right of the Olive Garden, the right of the Wild Ginger. When you're over getting a bite to eat, come say hi to us. Come walk in our showroom and pick up some floor plans. We've got a lot of just good literature to take. We recognize, Rick, that everyone's not building immediately, and so you don't have to walk in and think that we're going to sell you a house. Come by and pick up some information, learn who we are and where we're at. We'd love to get to know you. You might be building, in a year down the road or even 5 years down the road. We want to be that builder. We do. We want to, and this has really been a blessing for me to be around with the company as long as I have. I've had the opportunity to not only build some customers a home once, some of them 2 or even 3 times, or their children's home, which is really fun to see that return and repeat business. So our phone number is 936-647-1940. And come by and say hi to us.
Well, thank you, Brandon. I hope people will take advantage of that. A couple of things I'd like to mention before we go off the show today. First of all, be sure we have a lot of events coming up here at Lone Star Internet Radio. A lot of great things going on in our community on the weekends, particularly a lot of nonprofit events. And I want to remind people to check out that calendar at www.irlonestar.com for those events. And also remember our archives. All these shows, including the one today, are available in the archives. Either you can listen or you can watch through our YouTube offering, and I encourage you to check it out. Go to the show page, click to the show page, scroll down, and you'll find the different shows that have taken place, and encourage people to do that. Thank you for joining us for this week's Weekly Business Hour, and plan to join us next week. I have a special guest, a good friend of mine, Bruce Anderson, who's also a Silver Fox advisor, will be with us. And so check out on our website, www.irlonestar.com, again, and see Bruce's background. And always remember that Lone Star Internet Radio is Conroe